Gather Round Season 3 has wrapped up. Round 5 2025 review episode is dropping right now. We're going to review all 9 matches from the AFL from Gather Round. Stick around, enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks again. Welcome on in, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Football Podcast. This is now episode number 22 of season 2025. Gather Round is finished, and we're going to be reviewing all 9 matches from round 5 of the 2025 AFL season. It was Gather Round. 9 big matches, 9 incredible results. Maybe not 9, but there were certainly some interesting results in there. Only one of the South Australian teams won. It was the one that we were probably least expecting to win. There were some good games. There was some average games. There was some really good performances. We're going to go through it all here, as we always do on a Monday. We're going to review every game. So stick around. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Let me know how your team went on the weekend. And don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button, depending on what platform you're watching it on. It goes live on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So make sure, wherever you are, you follow along. We do 2 episodes every week. This is episode 1 of the week. Episode 2 will be out on Thursday, which is a preview of all upcoming games for the weekend ahead. So without any further ado, we're going to jump into it. The way the Gather Round started. Gather Round is obviously so far such a massive success. Brings footy fans all together. I kind of wish I had have gone. It would have been a great experience, but I didn't. And we led off on Thursday night, as every week starts on Thursday night pretty much, with Adelaide v Geelong. Obviously was at Adelaide Oval. Obviously a home game for Adelaide. It was an interesting one, in all honesty. High-scoring game, 15 goals to 18 goals, 100 to 119. Adelaide looked in control, certainly in that first half, leading by as many as 5 or so goals halfway through the second quarter. It was the last couple minutes of the second quarter where this game really swung. Bowies, Cameron, and Holmes all kicking a goal. The first 2 were right before 3/4 time, and then Holmes' goal was straight after half time. 3 goals within about the space of maybe 3 minutes, less than 3 minutes of game time. The last 2 goals of the second half were in about the space of a minute, and then 20 seconds into the third quarter they got another one. And that kind of just put all the momentum their way. Adelaide did kick a couple goals midway through the third quarter and looked like they were going to regain some ascendancy, but Geelong just ran away with it. Early last quarter, kicked 5 quick ones, ended up running away 19-point victors. Pretty competitive game from both teams. I don't think it was hugely different between the 2 teams on who was the better team. In the end, Geelong finish up in front, made their opportunities count and control when they were controlling the game, turned them into scores quite well. If we run down the team stats, disposal count pretty close. Geelong were +7 inside 50s. Clearances +3 to Geelong, so pretty close. Uncontested and contested footy both slightly in favour of Adelaide. Turnover game was well and truly controlled by Adelaide in terms of just straight numbers. Before we get to scoring, we'll go into the scoring from turnovers shortly. Other than that, nothing sticks out too much there. Best players, as you can see if you're watching the video. If you're just listening, I'll read out. Highest rated players according to the All Aussie Rules rating system. Max Holmes was clearly best on ground. Mark Keane played well. Bailey Smith was really good again. Jeremy Cameron and Brad Close was 5th. 32 touches and a goal for Max Holmes, 7 tackles, 805 metres gained. I think hard to go past him as best on ground. Isaac Rankin had some good numbers, 25 touches, 2 goals. Bailey Smith, 35 touches and a goal. Paddy Dangerfield ended up kicking 4 goals in what was a really good performance, as did Jeremy Cameron, also got 4 goals. Ben Keys kicked 3 for the Crows. Fogarty kicked 4 for the Crows as well. Jumping into the scoring from both teams, I said we'd get into scoring from turnovers, and it was pretty much level, in all honesty. Really high scoring from both teams. It's how Adelaide have scored and conceded a lot of scores this year, and this was no different. 75, 11 goals, 9.75 for Geelong, 11, 8.74 for Adelaide, so 1 point in it there. The difference here, though, was from stoppages, Geelong 44 to Adelaide 26. So a bit of a margin there. And then scoring origin, Adelaide really good at transitioning the ball from the back line, 59 to 26, but it was the forward half score origin for Geelong that was the damaging one, 63 to 29, chuck in the fact that they also got 5 goals straight from centre clearance, so that's 30 to 12 in the end, a big margin there. Overall, team rating, as you can see, we're pretty close. Adelaide 45.71, Geelong 45.89. Looking at where the differences were, Adelaide's backline actually probably had one of their better games, even though they conceded so much, which kind of sounds a bit funny, but at the same time it wasn't really the backline's fault. They conceded 7 extra inside 50s and only lost by a few goals, so not the worst performance from their backline. They certainly need to work out a way to stop opposition from scoring, but that's more a team thing than just the backline as a whole. Midfield was where Geelong dominated this game, no doubt about it. Max Holmes, Bailey Smith were outstanding. Top 5 players on the ground, you're looking at Geelong-wise, really scoring really well. Their bottom 5 didn't do great, in all honesty, from Geelong, but Adelaide's bottom 5 did, so it's all swings and roundabouts. Brownlow votes for this game, I went gone Max Holmes for 3, Bailey Smith 2, Isaac Rankin 1. And MVP voting, if you're new here, we do a voting system for every game. The winning team, top 5 players, get 10 for best, 8 for second best, 6 for third best, 4 for fourth, 2 for the 5th best player. And then obviously for the losing team, also the top 5 players, 5 for the best, 4 for the second best, 3 for the third best, 2 for the 4th best, and 1 for the 5th best player on the losing team. So winning team gets double the votes of the losing team. For this one, 10 went to Max Holmes, 8 to Bailey Smith, 6 to Jeremy Cameron, 4 to Brad Close, and 2 for Ollie Dempsey for the winning team. And the losing team, 5 to Mark Keane, 4 for Darcy Fogarty, 3 for Wayne Malira, 2 for Mitchell Hinge, and 1 for James Peatling. I think that's a wrap on this game. Really good performance in the end from Geelong. Get the away win 2 years in a row. They've beaten Adelaide at Adelaide Oval now. A bit of a bogey team for Adelaide, in all honesty. They don't have the best record against Geelong, and Geelong came to play. 2 losses in a row for Adelaide. It's not all doom and gloom, but they're scoring really well still, but they just need to find a way to stop their opposition from scoring. I think most ways you look at this game, Geelong probably deserved the win, just because of the fact that at certain times they took control of the game. That's Thursday night football. We'll jump into Friday night football. It was Collingwood, Sydney. Once again, another game at the Adelaide Oval. What to say about this one? Pretty competitive first quarter. Both teams seem to be right in the contest. Collingwood 2-point leaders at quarter time, 4 goals apiece at that time. But early second quarter was where it kind of turned. It went goal for goal to start, and then all of a sudden Collingwood kicked 4 quick ones in about the space of 4 or so minutes to really extend that gap, and then that's basically where it stayed. Sydney got a couple goals closer, then Collingwood got it back out to there. In the end, ended up being a 31-point win, 16-13, 109 to 12-6, 78. Collingwood just the better team on the night. Both teams missing a few players, so no real excuses there, I don't think. I think it ends up being levelling out a bit. Looking at some of the team stats here, Sydney actually had more of the ball and actually ended up with 1 extra inside 50. They were trailing that going into the last quarter, but they did kind of control the field position in the last quarter without making too much headway. Clearances, pretty level again, +1 to Collingwood, +8 centre clearances to Collingwood, whereas Sydney stoppages were good outside of the centre bounce. Contested football went the way of Collingwood, plus 10. Uncontested football went the other way, plus 11 for Sydney. Turnover game, plus 8 for Collingwood, intercept game. So Collingwood really good on the intercepts again and didn't turn it over too much, which is pretty much how they have played most of this season, whereas Sydney's turnover game hasn't been their best part of their game so far. Tackling, good numbers from Collingwood again, above average. Sydney slightly above average as well for them. Some of the key players in this game. Nick Dacos ended up with 34 touches, still side bottom, turning back the clock. He had 28 touches. He was very crucial. Darcy Cameron was good. Both ruckmen played their role. Ned Long, 29 touches, was outstanding, especially early. That first half was really good. Scotty Pendlebury was good. Isaac Heaney was great with 28 touches and 2 goals. Score sources for this one. Neither team got a goal from kick-ins, 1 point to 2 points in favour of Sydney. From stoppage, Collingwood went 49 to 25, so a bit of a margin there. And then turnover, slightly Collingwood's way as well, 59 to 51. So not massive numbers, but solid enough. And then from defensive half, it was 45 to 38. Forward half, 43 to 40. But Collingwood managed to score from the centre bounce, whereas Sydney just couldn't do it all night. 3-3-21 for Collingwood to 0-0-0 for Sydney. So 21-point margin from the centre bounce. We saw the centre bounce numbers was 18 to 10, so plus 8 for Collingwood, and they really turned that into scores, whereas Sydney couldn't turn any of their centre bounces into scores. Overall, best players, Isaac Heaney rated the highest on the ground, then Ned Long, Nick Dacos. Darcy Cameron still side bottom. Collingwood's team rating of 49.72 is one of their better ones of the year. Second best result, I think, just behind the Port Adelaide game. So yeah, that's all of those numbers. We'll jump into some other numbers, some of the other All Aussie Rules numbers. Forward line for Collingwood was really good here, 45 they rated to 39 for Sydney. Backlines were pretty level overall. Collingwood midfield a lot better than Sydney's. Outside of Isaac Heaney, he didn't get much support, whereas Collingwood's midfield between Ned Long, Nick Dacos, Scott Pendlebury, still side bottom, all really contributed quite well to this performance. Brownlow votes, Isaac Heaney I think gets the 3. He had 28 touches, 2 goals. He was clearly their best player. I also think off the top of my head he had multiple goal assists as well. 3 goal assists for him, so really crucial game from him. Stepped up when they needed, but unfortunately for Sydney, he didn't have enough support in this one. Nick Dacos gets the 2, Ned Long 1, I think. That's probably how the umpires will see it. MVP-wise, for the winning team Collingwood, Ned Long gets the 10, Dacos 8, still side bottom 6, Darcy Cameron 4, Scott Pendlebury 2. And for Sydney, it was Isaac Heaney 5, Brodie Grundy 4, James Rowbottom 3, Riley Bice 2, and Matt Roberts the 1. That's everything we needed from that game. We jump into Saturday football. And it was a pretty early start, in all honesty, on Saturday. We went to the Barossa for North Melbourne v Gold Coast. Gold Coast in the pink. And boy, oh boy, did they put on a performance in that last quarter. They ended up winning this one by 52 points. It certainly didn't look like that was going to be the case. Certainly just before three-quarter time, it was still anyone's game, technically. Gold Coast kicked 2 goals right before three-quarter time, which put them out to a 19-point lead, but it was only just over a goal, looking like going into three-quarter time. But then after that, it was all one-way traffic. That last quarter was a domination, 7 goals to 2, and if you count the last, say, 10 minutes of the third quarter, it was all one-way traffic. It was 11 goals, I think, in that time, to 2 goals for North Melbourne. So absolutely put them to bed in that final quarter and a half, from North Melbourne leading halfway through the third quarter to losing by 51 points, 52 points, sorry. Not the best result, in all honesty, for them. If we look at the numbers, I think Gold Coast were the better team overall. They looked the better team, but North Melbourne just were hanging in with them. In the end, the floodgates opened. Inside 50s plus 18 to Gold Coast, so clear domination there. Disposal-wise, actually, North Melbourne were competitive. Clearance-wise as well, only plus 3 for Gold Coast. Contested footy plus 16 for Gold Coast, whereas North Melbourne were leading the uncontested football. Really low turnover game, 51 for Gold Coast, which is well below their average, and 54 for North Melbourne, also well below their average. So both teams kind of looked after the ball a bit better than perhaps normal. Tackle game, North Melbourne plus 6, nothing too exciting. Best players in this one, my match ratings had Matt Rowell on top, Joel Jeffrey, then Caleb Daniel, Jai Simpkin, Miller, sorry, I've lost the plot there. Some of the big numbers stat-wise, Matt Rowell, 26 and a goal. Joel Jeffrey played really well. He had 20 and a goal. Jai Simpkin for the Kangaroos, 24, 2 goals. Harry Sheasel, 27 touches. Noble, 28 touches and a goal. 32 for Caleb Daniel. Plenty of other big names all contributing in their way. Ben King kicked 5 goals straight from 6 disposals, so good return from him. He continues his charge towards that top of the Coleman list. He certainly still is in with a really good shot, in my opinion, at winning a Coleman. Ben Long kicked 3 goals too. Other than that, it was all 2s and 1s. Team rating, I've put those two numbers the wrong way around. Just an FYI, Gold Coast were a 48.6 and North Melbourne were a 43.58. Not sure how I got those two the wrong way around, but just be aware that I have put them the wrong way around. Scoring wise in this one, if we have a look at the score sources, 2 goals from kick into 1 for Gold Coast 2, North Melbourne 1. From stoppages, it was 54-40 in favour of Gold Coast, and then from the turnover, it was the biggest difference here, 74-43 in favour of Gold Coast. And then from scoring from the defensive half, it was 67-32 in favour of Gold Coast, so transitioned the ball really, really well from the back line. 11 goals won. Forward half could have been just as disruptive or damaging, if they had kicked a little straighter. It was 64-50, but 9 goals 10 for Gold Coast. And from centre bounce, surprisingly not that much scoring in this one. 1 goal 3, 9-117 for Kangaroos. Kangaroos this year have scored quite a few goals from centre bounce, so this was a lot lower than their normal efforts of what we've seen this year. Midfield game was dominant from Gold Coast, in all honesty. That's where they won this one. Brownlow votes, we've got Matt Rowell 3, Jai Simpkin 2 and Miller 1. MVP wise, we got Matt Rowell 10, Joel Jeffrey 8, Miller 6, Ben Long 4, Noah Anderson 2. For North Melbourne, we've gone Caleb Daniel 5, Jai Simpkin 4, Harry Sheasel 3, Jack Darling gets 2, and Luke Davies Yanaki gets 1. I don't think there's anything else too much to say about this game. Obviously, really good win for Gold Coast. They remain undefeated and have a really good chance at continuing that this weekend. North Melbourne, they've shown some good signs this year of being competitive, but they just have had a few fade outs and few moments where they've just been beaten. They still look like they've improved. I think they've still got a bit more improvement to go. This midfield, I don't think, is working as well as perhaps we expected it to, with the big names or the young, good talent they have in there. It's just week in, week out, they are getting outrated quite comfortably in that midfield range. Moving on to the next game, and it was the game that was the two teams that hadn't won a game, or 2 of the 3 teams that haven't won a game yet this year. And Carlton finally got themselves on the board. They win this one 17-19, 121 to 6-14-50. Some inaccurate kicking from both teams. in this one, and I mean, it never looked like being any different than Carlton winning this one. They were 3 goals, 6-1, 3 at quarter time, and then it just kind of blew out. It was 30-odd points at halftime, almost 50 points at 3-quarter time, and ends up being a 71-point victory. They did what they needed to do, Carlton. They lose Harry Mackay very early in this game, but other than that, everything kind of went right. Really high rating. West Coast rating was terrible. Just be aware, every team that has played West Coast has rated really high. West Coast are struggling at the moment. So disposal count plus 140 for Carlton. Ridiculously huge margin in the disposal count. Also, ridiculous margin in the inside 50s. 73 to 35. That's plus 38 inside 50s for Carlton. They had over double the inside 50s that West Coast did. That is ridiculous. Clearances 40 to 18. Absolute domination there. 17 to 5 in centre clearances. 23 to 13 in stoppages. Plus 60 contested football is ridiculous numbers. I think it was an all-time low from West Coast. It was just 77, plus 80 or plus 90 basically. Uncontested football, turnover game, Carlton had 160 odd disposals more than West Coast and still had 9 less turnovers, which is another ridiculous stat. Marks plus obviously 50 for Carlton. It was just a domination. Tackle count for both teams was really, really low. It was just a no-pressure game. And, something's going on at West Coast. But whatever it is not good football. Best players in this one, obviously, all Carlton. I think in terms of ratings, the top 9 or 10 players on the field were all Carlton players. Sam Walsh was outstanding, 37 touches, 3 goals. George Hewitt, 39 touches, really good as well. Chera was good, McGovern was good. Sam Doherty probably played his best game of the year. He's had a pretty quiet year. Paddy Cripps, 23 touches, 3 goals. Granted, a little bit of, I think 2 of those goals were in the last quarter, but still, really good performance from him. Corey Durden got 4 goals. It's just one-way traffic. There's no other way to talk about this game other than to say that it was just an absolute dismal performance from West Coast. Carlton got 8-2 from kick-ins, from stoppages 45-11. They did dominate the stoppages for the game, so not really surprised there. They also dominated turnovers and had 68-37 from that in terms of scoring. Score Origin 42-35 from the back half, so not great numbers there from Carlton, just average from both teams. But the forward half is where they dominated this one, 68-13, absolute domination, and centre bounce 11-2. It just doesn't read well for West Coast. Obviously, rating 53.97 for Carlton, 35.99, a dismal 35.99 for West Coast. Forward line, obviously Carlton outperformed West Coast there. Back line as well, same, and midfield was absolute domination one way. 71 was Carlton's midfield rating to a 37.8 for West Coast midfield. I don't know what to say about this game. I don't know what West Coast are doing in terms of a lot of things. Why is their best centre bounce player not in at the centre bounces? Last week he only had 3 centre bounce attendances. This week he had slightly more than 3, but still only 11%. I'm talking Harley Reid here. So he's just playing off that half-back flank really at the moment, and he's playing okay. Like, his rating was still pretty good. We'll get to him in a minute, but it's just, why is your best centre bounce worker not in there too often? I just don't understand that, but I'm sure they have a reason. Brownlow votes in this one. Sam Walsh, I think, gets the 3. George Hewitt, I think, deserves 2, and Paddy Cripps gets the 1. MVP wise, we're gone Sam Walsh 10, George Hewitt 8, Mitch McGovern 6, Adam Chera 4, Tom De Koning 2, And for West Coast, I don't know if any of them deserve it, but Jack Graham 5, Harley Reid 4, Tom Gross 3, Ryan Marrick 2, and Harry Edwards with 1. So that's that game done. We'll move on to the Saturday evening, late afternoon game. This one was at Norwood Oval. The reigning premiers, Brisbane Lions, took on the Western Bulldogs. And in all honesty, it was a good game. Bulldogs looked like they had it for pretty much a long period of this, but once again, for not the first time this year, for probably, is it every game or all but one, Brisbane have come from behind and run over the top of teams, and they did it again here. They get the win by 21 points in the end. Bulldogs, halftime, were up by 33 points. They extended that out to about 40 early in the third quarter. But then it was just one-way traffic. Brisbane had the lead by halfway through the last quarter and then ended up winning it by 21 points. Yeah, crazy. The comeback kings. They're the new comeback kings in the AFL. A couple years ago it was Collingwood, but right now it's the Brisbane Lions. You look at their last, or all the games this season, and their last two out of their last 3 games, or 3 out of their last 4 last year, I think they came from behind outside of the grand final and the qualifying final. They pretty much did the other 2 finals games. They're just getting it done when they need to. Not doing 4-quarter performance, but at the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter if you keep winning. Disposal count here, plus 30 for Brisbane. Inside 50s were pretty level, 54 to 53 in favour of Brisbane. Clearances pretty close again. Bulldogs did dominate centre clearances, but Brisbane managed to win the stoppage clearances. Contested footy really close here. Both teams slightly below average. Uncontested footy, both teams above average. Turnover game was 64 for Bulldogs to 61 for Brisbane, so Brisbane win that one slightly. Mark count 102 to Brisbane to 78 for the Bulldogs. Tackle count was huge in favour of Brisbane, plus 25. Some of the key players in this one, Hugh McCluggage had 32 touches. Will Ashcroft 31, Zach Bailey 20 and 3, Lockie Neal 28, Ed Richards 29, Matt Kennedy 27. Goal kickers, you got 5 from Eric Hipwood, 4 from Logan Morris. So the 2 key forwards combined for 9 goals straight from 27 touches. Really good output from those 2. Zach Bailey 3, Aaron Norton 3, Cam Rayner, Sam Darcy and Callum Archie all getting 2 goals. Jumping into the scoring for both teams, if we have a look at this, score sources, 2 goals, 1 from kick-ins for Brisbane to 0-0 for Bulldogs. From stoppages, Bulldogs were actually pretty competitive in this. It was 47 for Brisbane, 43 for the Bulldogs. Turnovers 58 to 54 in favour of Brisbane. Score origin 41 to 35 from the back half. From the forward half, it was 65 to 34 for Brisbane. So that's where they won it. And then from centre bounce, 4 goals, 4 for the Bulldogs, 28 to 12 for the Brisbane Lions. But 4-4, if they had kicked a couple extra there, this game could have been over. We go into the rating for both teams here. Brisbane 51.06, Bulldogs 44.11. Clearly rated the better team, Brisbane. And I mean, most of the stats in this game suggest that Brisbane were the better team. But Bulldogs probably should have put them away while they were up by 40 points. It was the Bulldogs forward line didn't look as good as it has previously. Sam Darcy still played really well, but I think he lacked a bit of support up there, whereas the Brisbane forward line clearly did really well. Logan Morris, Eric Hipwood really performed really well in this. Midfield-wise, both teams were pretty even in all honesty. The numbers suggest that way at least. Brownlow votes I've gone Human Cluggage 3, Zach Bailey 2, Ed Richards 1. And for the MVP, Human Cluggage 10, Zach Bailey 8, Callum Archie 6, Eric Hipwood 4, Will Ashcroft 2. And for the Doggies, it was 5 for Ed Richards, 4 for Tim English, 3 for Tom Liberatore, 2 for Riley West, and 1 for Riley Sanders. We move on to Saturday night football. And it was Melbourne, Essendon, Adelaide Oval. And, I mean, for those that watch this game, if you're a neutral supporter, it's probably not one you're going to write home about. It ended up being 8-9-57 for Melbourne, 15-6-96. So comfortable win for the Dons, but it was messy. It wasn't the cleanest looking game. It wasn't the most spectacular game, but the Dons certainly got the job done. Never looked like really losing it. There was a period late in the third quarter where a couple times Melbourne kicked a goal that got them within, say, 10 points or so. But in the end, Bombers were just too good. End up kicking the last 3 of the game to win it by 39. Perhaps slightly more than maybe the game suggested it should have been, the margin-wise. Really weird stats here. Buckle in, because this is really, really interesting stat numbers. Plus 90 disposals for the Dons. So controlled the ball really well. Inside 50 count, plus 8 to the Demons. They were messy, they weren't clean, but they had enough field position. Just not great entries, I guess. Plus 4 in clearances for Demons as well, so that suggests they played okay. Plus 9 centre clearances, obviously that means they lost stoppage clearances, but the Bombers are a pretty good clearance team. And Melbourne haven't been this year, but somehow Melbourne really bought it in this game in that regard, but just couldn't convert it into enough scoring opportunities. Uncontested footy was dominated by Essendon. They just controlled this game in long periods of uncontested football. Other than that, there's nothing too exciting there. Best players in this one, Zach Merritt, 37 touches, 2 clearances, 5 tackles, really good performance. Nick Martin, 28 and a goal. Archie Roberts was really good, 28 touches. For Melbourne, Langdon was good with 25 and a goal. Petrarca had 27. Max Gawn was probably close to their best with 22 and 49 hitouts. If you look at the ratings on the screen, Max Gawn was number 1 rated player, then Sam Draper, so 2 ruckmen at the top. Ed Langdon, Archie Roberts, Will Setterfield. Team ratings, 50.6 for the Bombers, 43.34 for the Demons. Scoring sources for this one, just go onto the next screen. 1 point from kick-ins, and that was to the Demons, none for the Bombers. From stoppage, 44-29, so Melbourne really good in the stoppage game. Didn't convert it, and wait till we get to the centre bounces, which they absolutely dominated the centre bounces, but did not score from it. Turnovers 52-27 in favour of the Dons, so turnover game in raw numbers, not too much difference, but the actual scoring from turnovers massively dominated by the Bombers. Score origin from the back half, 39-26, so pretty standard numbers there. 45-30 for the forward half, and centre bounce 12-1 in favour of the Bombers. And as I said before, the centre bounces was 16-7 in favour of the Demons. So from 16 centre bounces, they scored 1 point. 16 centre clearances, sorry. Melbourne scored 1 point. Meanwhile, the Bombers had 7 centre clearances and scored 2 goals. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. Yeah, it's just tells you everything you need to know, in my opinion. Anyway, Brownlow votes in this one. I went Zach Merritt 3 for his 37 touches. Nick Martin 2, Archie Roberts 1. MVP wise, 10 for Sammy Draper, 8 for Archie Roberts, 6 for Will Setterfield, 4 for Sam Durham, and 2 for Zach Merritt. And for Melbourne, the losing team, it was Max Gawn 5, Ed Langdon 4, Christian Salem with 3, Cozzy Pickett 2, and Christian Petraka with 1. We move on to Sunday games. There's 3 games left to look at. First one on Sunday was Richmond Fremantle back at the Barossa Park for the second game there this weekend. Dockers won it comfortably in the end, 108-47, 61-point victors. Richmond competitive for the first half once again, like they have been a couple times this year. They were even leading, I won't say most of the way through the second quarter, but halfway through the second quarter before Freo kicked the last couple just to give them a slight lead, 10 points at half time. But it was one-way traffic after that. Second half was 9 goals, 5 for Fremantle to 1 goal, 2 for Richmond. It's fine. It's a fade out. You're going to cop a few of them this year for Richmond. Look at the team stats in this one. Disposal count really similar. It was the inside 50 count though, where Fremantle controlled it, 65-36, so plus 29. Not even the biggest discrepancy of the weekend, which is crazy. Plus 10 in the clearance game. Fremantle clearly last year were the best clearance team. They haven't been spectacular this year so far, but they have shown some really good assertive domination in that stoppage game here. 15-8 in centre clearances, 28-25 in stoppage. They had more contested footy. Richmond actually controlled the uncontested footy, but the turnover game was plus 9 for Fremantle. They won that one quite comfortably. Tackling as well, plus 20. Best players. Josh Tracy kicked 6 goals. He was crucial, especially early when Richmond were looking good. Tracy was the one man standing up for the Dockers. Kicked 6-1 in the end. Andrew Brayshaw clearly was the only other player that potentially would be best on ground. 31 touches, 10 tackles, 6 clearances. He was outstanding. Sarong, as always, 29 touches was good. Chapman, Jaden Short for Richmond, Taranto for Richmond. Jacob Hopper had 33 touches. Jumping into the scoring for both teams. Just got to go to the right game, would help. This game was the scoring. I mean, in the end, Fremantle dominated this game, but that was all due to turnovers. Even though we said how they dominated stoppages in this game, they did not score from them. So Richmond 6-0 from kick-ins. From stoppages, 38-21. So Fremantle did win it a little bit, but not massively. But the turnover game, they did dominate. 11 goals, 470 to 3-2-20. From the defensive half was 40-20 in favour of Fremantle. From the forward half was 61-8. So massive discrepancy there. Richmond, who lost centre bouncers, just like Essendon did, still got more scoring from their centre bouncers, 3-1-19 to 1-1-7. So Fremantle, even though they have been the best clearance team in the competition over the last 18 months, they're not always the best at scoring from those clearances. They do get field position, but they don't always score as well as perhaps they should from their clearance domination. I mean, it's clear that they were just the better team out there in pretty much every facet of the game. I went 3 for the Brownlow votes. I went 3 for Andrew Brayshaw, 2 for Josh Tracy, 1 for Caleb Sarong. MVP for the winning team, Brayshaw 10, Tracy 8, O'Meara 6, Hayden Young 4 in his first game of the year, Caleb Young 2. For the Tigers, it was Toby Dan Curvis 5, Tom Brown 4, Tim Taranto 3, Jacob Hopper 2, and Nathan Broad with the 1 vote. We move on to the second last game. St Kilda GWS, probably one of the better games of the weekend. It was quite an okay game for most of it. The last quarter kind of fell into a nothingness with GWS not kicking a goal. They were 50 points up at three-quarter time. It was close-ish at halftime, 20 points, but third quarter dominated by GWS. Last quarter, St Kilda made it look a little bit more respectable, like they did last year against GWS. They were 30 points down at three-quarter time last year and came back and lost by a point, whereas this year they were a bit further down at 50 points, but kicked the only 4 goals of the last quarter, including 3 in the first 5.5 minutes. So they gave themselves a little sniff at that point, but GWS didn't even kick a goal in that last quarter. Looking at some of the team stats here, GWS clearly dominated possession, but the inside 50 count went the way of St Kilda. I mean, inside 50 count can sometimes be a little bit misleading, but they did win it by 11, which is quite a domination in that area. Clearances were pretty level, 38 to GWS, 35 for St Kilda. It was uncontested footy and contested footy that GWS controlled. Turnovers +5, so GWS better in that area. Below average or above average for GWS, whereas St Kilda were about their average. Other than that, we'll jump into some player stats. Lockie Ash had 33 touches, was really good. Toby Green, 17 touches, 5 goals. 27 and a goal for Ward. For St Kilda, Wanganeen Malira, he had 24 touches, 3 goals. He was huge. Jack Sinclair, 26 and a goal. Cooper Sharman, probably the best key forward on the ground in this game. He kicked 3 goals. Stringer kicked 2. Jesse Hogan kicked 2. Aaron Cadman kicked 2. Score sources for this one were 2 points each from kick-ins. From stoppages, it was GWS 42 to St Kilda 38. Turnover game was where GWS scored the best, 65 to 42. They controlled this turnover game throughout the match, and they converted it into scores. From defensive half, which is typically the I won't say it's the most productive area of GWS's game, because statistically it's not. But compared to other areas and other teams, it is probably one of their best assets, is their ability to score from the back half. They did it again here. I mean, it's not huge scoring, but they scored a lot more than their opposition, 35 to 11. From forward half, it was 61 to 52. And from centre bounce, it was 13 to 19 in favour of St Kilda. Yeah, that's the scoring. Ratings, Wanganeen Malira was outstanding. Toby Green also really good. Jack Sinclair, Lockie Ash, Tom Green were the top 5 rated players. GWS clearly outrated St Kilda here, 48 to 40. That's about average for GWS, whereas St Kilda were below their average. They've rated pretty highly throughout even some of their losses this year. Forward line's pretty level across both teams. Back line's also pretty level. It was the midfield game though. The midfield game of GWS. They were just too strong, too deep. St Kilda had a couple players play okay, but overall it was GWS's midfield. So Brownlow votes, I went Toby Green 3, Nashaya Wanganeen Malira getting 2, Tom Green getting 1. And then for the MVP for the winning team, Toby Green 10, Lockie Ash 8, Tom Green 6, Cullen Ward 4, and Kieran Briggs 2 for the losing team. Nashaya Wanganeen Malira 5, Jack Sinclair 4, Marcus Windhager 3, Cooper Sharman 2, and Hugo Garcia with the 1. That leaves us with one game left of Gather Round, and it was the biggest upset of the weekend. There's no doubt about it. It was Port Adelaide Hawthorn, Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide going into this not in the best form. Hawthorn coming into it undefeated. Things changed though very quickly in this one. This is an absurd game. 59 points Port Adelaide were leading by at half-time, having conceded the last 2 goals. So they were 70 points clear just before half-time. Hawthorn did come back. They ended up only losing by 30. They got within 20 at one point. Port Adelaide took their foot off the gas, maybe. Hawthorn finally showed up. I don't know. But after being, what did I say, 70 points up, they probably should have done slightly better than they did, Port Adelaide. But in the end, they got the 4 points, and that's all that matters. In what was a fiery game, we knew it would be. And it kind of lived up to that. Team stats, I mean, you're going to see a domination in most stats from Port Adelaide here because they controlled the game. Even in the second half, Hawthorn managed to start scoring over the back quite freely, in all honesty, too freely for Port Adelaide's liking, I would imagine. But the stats still will say that Port Adelaide were controlling long periods of that game. It was just Hawthorn getting over the back. Plus 13 inside 50s for Port Adelaide. Somehow they lost the free kick count at home. You don't see that happen to teams too often. Port Adelaide +5 in the clearance game, which was all stoppage clearances, +10 stoppage clearances, lost 5 in centre clearances. Contested footy was pretty close. Uncontested footy well on side of Port Adelaide. Turnover game, Port Adelaide actually controlled it for once this season. Hasn't happened too often. Tackle game, Hawthorn actually brought some decent pressure, especially in the second half, but it was too little too late. Best players, Connor Rose went behind the ball in this one and had 28 touches and 2 goals. Who would have thought? Halfback flanker Connor Rose. Zach Butters had 33 touches. He was huge. Horn Francis, 29. For Hawthorn, 29 touches for Jai Newcomb. Lloyd Meek was good. Jack Gunston kicked 6 goals. He was outstanding. Sicily went forward. He kicked 2 goals. Rioli and Georgiadis both got 3. 2 of Willie Rioli's goals were in the space of 12 seconds because he kicked a goal, got pushed over and got a free kick and kicked another one. Overall, Port Adelaide were just a better team here. There's no doubt about it. We look at score sources now. 2 goals from kick-ins for Hawthorn. They transitioned the ball pretty well in this one. Stoppages was 60-47 in favour of Port Adelaide, and turnovers was 60-32 in favour of Port Adelaide. From the defensive half is where Hawthorn kept themselves in this game. They kicked 6-1, 37-3-2-20 from the defensive half. But the forward half, what were they doing in this? They could not stop this Port Adelaide onslaught. It was from turnover. It was from stoppages in their forward half. It was just forward half domination. 12-8-80 to 6-2-38. And then centre bounce was pretty level, 3-2-20 to 2-4-16. So it was all just that forward half domination by Port Adelaide that gave them the win in this. Rated 49.18, which is not their best rating of the year, but best rating against a team that's actually decent. Obviously, their best rating, I think, was against Richmond. Meanwhile, Hawthorn's 43.53 would be their lowest rating of the year. It wasn't a great performance from them. Connor Rose was outstanding, as we said. Brownlow votes, I went Connor Rose 3, Zach Butters 2, Jai Newcomb with 1. And then MVP, Connor Rose 10, Zach Butters 8, Horn Francis 6, Willem Drew with 4, and Jordan Sweet with 2. And then for Hawthorn, it was Lloyd Meek with 5, Jai Newcomb 4, James Sicily with 3, Jack Gunston for 6 goals with 2, and Dylan Moore with 1. So that wraps up the round. Entertaining football, no doubt about it. We'll just hide this for a second. We'll run through the ladder quickly. It went Brisbane. It went Brisbane. Brisbane are on top of the ladder is what I was trying to say. Gold Coast second. GWS third. Obviously, the top 2, both Queensland teams are undefeated. And then we've got teams that have lost 1 game in GWS, Collingwood and Hawthorn 3, 4, 5. Teams that have lost 2 games in 6, 7, 8, 9 in Geelong, Adelaide, Fremantle, St Kilda. Worth noting, Essendon are 13th on the ladder, have also only lost 2 games, but have played 1 less game. The teams that have only got 2 wins are Sydney, Port Adelaide, Western Bulldogs, Essendon. 1-win teams are Carlton, North Melbourne, Richmond in 14, 15 and 16. And then the 2 teams that haven't won a game yet in Melbourne and West Coast, sitting 17th and 18th. Also, while I've got you here, I started it a long time ago, but I've completed my ELO rating system for each team, week in, week out. So based on their performance, whether they're versing a team above them or below them, each team gets an ELO starting rating, and it's developed over time. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with where it's at the moment in terms of rating teams. So at the moment, Brisbane are on top of that. They're a 1682. Hawthorn are 1606 in second. I'm going to post this on my socials over the next couple of days, so go check that out. Collingwood 3rd, GWS 4, Sydney 5, Geelong 6, Port Adelaide 7, Fremantle in 8th, Western Bulldogs 9, Gold Coast 10, St Kilda 11, Adelaide 12, Essendon 13, Carlton 14, Melbourne 15, North Melbourne 16, West Coast 17 and Richmond 18. So that uses starting ratings from where they were at the end of last season, and then just adjusted each game based on how they play. Biggest movers and shakers, I guess, this year. Gold Coast are the biggest improvers. They've gone up 61 points so far. Collingwood 54 points up. Brisbane 48. GWS 43. Hawthorn 37. Going the other way, Melbourne are minus 84 points. West Coast minus 56. Port Adelaide minus 37. Carlton minus 34. Sydney minus 28. And Bulldogs minus 24 points. So that's the ELO rating system. We've got a couple more things to look at. Just ignore this slide and this one for the moment. We'll come back to them. These were my footy tips for the weekend. It wasn't the best weekend. It started poorly, finished poorly. Through the middle, we were fine. So we got Adelaide wrong. They got done by Geelong. Sydney went down to Collingwood, so we got that one wrong as well. But then we hit our straps. Gold Coast won. Similar sort of margin. Carlton won by a lot more than that. Brisbane won by about that margin. Essendon won by a lot more than that. Fremantle won by a similar sort of margin. GWS won by a bit more than that. And then we got the Hawthorn one wrong at the end. So we went 6 of 9, gets us to 30 out of 44 for the year. Not great, not terrible. But we keep chugging along. Hopefully we will continue to improve. The leaderboard for the MVP after round 4 goes like this. So using the voting system that I mentioned at the start of the episode, Hugh McCluggage has taken the lead with 36 out of a possible 50. Have they played 5 games? Yes, they have. So possible 50. Sinclair 35 from St Kilda, 33 for Brayshaw, 30 for Matt Rao, 28 for Steel Sidebottom, Bailey Smith and Max Holmes. Connor Rose has 27 and then 26 for Dane Zorko and Toby Green. Final thing to look at before we wrap up this episode is the Brownlow prediction leaderboard. After round 5, this is how I have it. McCluggage and Matt Rao both on 9 votes. Toby Green has jumped up to 8. Isaac Rankin on 7 with Zach Merritt, Caleb Sarong, Max Holmes and Connor Rose. Oh, and Jack Sinclair as well, also on 7. Then on 6, we got Jordan Dawson, George Hewitt, Andrew Brayshaw, Bailey Smith, Will Day, and Tom Liberatore. And then on 5, we have Lockie Neal, Jai Simpkin, Jack McRae. Make sure you head to the socials. We're going to have lots of posts this week, as we do every week. Yeah, we'll give a quick rundown, I guess, while we're here before we wrap up this episode of what to expect on my socials. Twitter, we like to tweet during games. We tweet Twitter/X, of course, whenever we have on our mind. So go check that out. Instagram is the best place for my stats and my infographics. We post all of these after each game. We do who we're going to think is going to win each game on the story each week. Chuck in the fact that throughout the week we do a rookie report, we do a Brownlow report, we do MVP report, we do team of the week each week as well. So that will be dropping tomorrow, Tuesday, or today, depending on when you listen/watch this. Tuesday each week we drop our team of the week. We also do team ratings. We'll do our ELO rating system posted on there each week. So go check all that out. Social media game. Help us grow. Share it with your friends. Share the podcast with your friends. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate you for tuning in. We're going to try and keep growing. We've got a long way to go, but I believe that we can do it. So, yeah, make sure you share with your friends. Thanks for tuning in. This has been All Aussie Rules. We'll be back on Thursday with the next episode. Go to the YouTube channel as well. There'll be other videos posted this week. One on the scoring of the AFL this year compared to last year. And we might do an in-depth into my ELO rating system. That is everything for today. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us on the next one.